Hi, this is Bill Meyers again, and I've been sharing stories about my mentors, and today I want to talk about David Foster. I've been friends with David for quite a while, quite a long time, and I have to say he's helped me a number of ways. We've had a couple near misses, and I regret to this day, and it actually came from good advice from him that I didn't necessarily follow. In '78, I got a call from Maurice White, invited me to write and arrange material for Earth, Wind & Fire's album I Am. And I met with David that very first day, that he came into Hollywood studio, that I was there, where the rhythm section sessions were now being, recorded. And we hit it off, really, really close, quickly. And it didn't take me any time to figure out this guy was an incredible talent. I liked him immediately. He was able to assess all aspects of the recording, and the energy was contagious, man. He told me that he really loved my demo tape, the one that Maurice had found, and that he and Maurice hopefully were going to produce my first album. Now, at the same time, and here's another problem that I wish had been resolved differently in retrospect. And my lawyer was Richard Lair from Mitchell, Silverberg, and Knupp, and my manager, Jerry Wolf, who was a gentleman that actually paid for my demos initially. We're negotiating a really all-encompassing contract with Maurice's new company titled ARC. It was a new label. And they wanted me to sign a solo recording contract, production agreement, and a publishing deal. And it sounded great, and this was a huge step up for me. Problem was that the lawyer representing ARC was Eric Eisner, who also used to be at Mitchell, Silverberg, and Knupp. And along with Richard, they were rivals even there. And now we've got two different sides. So my side was trying to help me by holding out for more money across the board, while Cavallo and Ruffalo, who weren't happy that I have this rookie guy trying to be my manager, they wanted to be my managers. And we were trying to work out some sort of compromise. I had at times maybe a misplaced sense of honor with people that have helped me. It probably would have been the move to take it, because I found out, only a couple of years later that ARC dissolved, and I would have been free of all contracts. Those days, though, record contracts were like slave agreements. There was like a 7-year agreement, and all they could pick up or drop you at any point during that period of time. And like I said, I had felt indebted to my manager, and he was telling me, no, we need to hold out for something better. So after a full month of negotiations, they dropped all offers, and we were stuck with about a $10,000 legal fee. But while this was going on, I managed to record and arrange Can't Let Go and Where Do We Go From Here, which I co-wrote with Ross Finelli. And one day, after I committed to recording another of my songs with Harvey Mason, David came back to me, and he was really excited about recording it with Earth, Wind & Fire, and it was called Here Today and Gone Tomorrow. Now, a little background on that. I originally was a classical organ major, and then I was an organ major with a piano minor, which devolved ultimately into becoming an orchestration major, because I couldn't see myself playing in churches for the rest of my life. That just didn't make sense. And a dear friend by the name of Paul Wilson, who was the first African-American I really ever knew, because I had lived in a lily white suburb, kind of hipped me to jazz and blues and pop songs, rhythm and blues. Ended up becoming very successful as the owner of Herschel Commercial, one of the top jingle houses in Chicago. And he opened my eyes wide. And this was a path I really wanted to go to. And it led me eventually to Maurice. And I asked Maurice if I'd already, before meeting Maurice, I loved Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea. My first love in jazz was Oscar Peterson. And in those days, you could take a record, and there was a speed on our record player that could cut something that was on an album size from 33 1/3 down to 16 1/2, which would drop everything an octave, but I would put a cassette near speakers, and I could learn Oscar's licks and much slower at halftime. And so that helped me tremendously. And then after that, it was Herbie Hancock His Headhunters record just blew me away. And Harvey Mason was playing on that. So suddenly Harvey Mason comes to me and says, man, I love this song, and I want you to record with me, and I'll have Stanley Clarke on bass, Lee Ritenour on guitar, Paulina DaCosta playing percussion. I'm playing drums on it, of course, he said, and well, Bill Chaplin sing it, and I'll let you do the arrangements. You can play all the solos. So I was in heaven. And I asked Maurice, I went back to Maurice White and said, is there any chance you could cover it also? And he said, no, we don't do that. You have to pick them or us. And David, tried to convince me that it would be really good for my career if I had 2 songs on an Earth, Wind & Fire album, because they were at their apex at that point. Well, I was working with him and on IM. I got a call from David one day to do a demo on a song that he was working on for Bill Chaplin's album. Now, Bill was the lead singer on Here Today, Gone Tomorrow, and I think he probably put in a good word for me. And he said he wanted to get my energy on it, and that would let him, David, sit back in the booth and just produce. So I was going to be joined by Al McKay, Verdine, and Fred. And I just played with them on IM. And I'd also just cut Here Today, Gone Tomorrow with Bill. So I said, man, absolutely. I enjoyed the experience. So the session was going to be on a Saturday, and I was all set to leave my hotel when I got a call from David. And he had to cancel the session. Apparently, Maurice had this rule that the band members could take recordings on other people's records, but not the entire rhythm section. He did not want to give that sound away. That was only to be saved for Earth, Wind & Fire. And David told me that Al had left a message first with the real truth that they couldn't record, and he was sorry for canceling. And then that was followed by some pretty lame excuses. First one was by Fred, the drummer. He said he was double booked on that day. And that didn't make a lot of sense, because if you double booked in Los Angeles for a union date, you had to pay double scale. And then finally, Verdine said he was dealing with an accounting problem and couldn't make the date. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this. I think he said it put him in the wrong tax bracket or something goofy. But David was flipped. He was really pissed off. And I didn't get my chance to, record for him and with the rhythm section, unfortunately. David helped me a lot of different ways. I was invited to his house quite a few times. I got to meet talented people. And, his recommendation went a long way to having them believing also in me and giving me a chance. In 1980, Boz Scaggs was touring. He had gotten Record of the Year for his last album, but there was a very nasty breakup, and I think it really affected his health too, in his marriage. And he finally then went and recorded his next record. I think it was called Down Two and to the Left. And he asked David to tour on piano with him, but David was way too busy at this point. He was blowing up as an engineer. And David recommended me. So I ended up getting to tour with Toto, who was working on their first record, but touring with Boz also. David started using me for string arranging. I worked with Denise Williams, Ray Kennedy, a couple of demos that he was trying to get people signed with and stuff like that. We would celebrate each other's birthday. I got to, meet his then wife. He was the one that introduced me to Quincy Jones. And of course that led to more songwriting covers because of that. A little bit later, 1981, I started a band, and a real gifted songwriter and singer, Guy Thomas. And we really wrote well together, and it just felt right. And so we added Neil Steubenhaus on bass, and Vinnie Colaiuti on drums, and Carlos Rios on guitar. And we called the band 213, because we were all in that same area code. So we did a 5-song demo, and we put $1,000 up to cut at a studio. It was done at Smoke Tree, which was in Chatsworth. And our first 5-song demo was heard and liked by Michael Austin at Warner Brothers. Now, Michael was the son of Mo, who was running the company at that time. So we were right on the right path here. And he gave us a budget for more material. He said, I like what I hear. Give me another hit single. he heard a single that he thought was a hit single called, oh God, I'm forgetting that. Three Little Words. Three Little Words Where I Love You, right? So we went back in the studio. David heard the first one and called me up and said, man, I really like this stuff. I even like to produce you guys. I think I could make it a slam dunk. And I said, well, I was going to produce this, but would you let me co-produce it with you? And he said, yeah, sure, we could do that. So we were all set up. It looked like it was all going to work. We met at his house. We went over the songs. Unfortunately, Guy had been writing some other songs, and he had a manager pushing him to get a solo deal. And he kind of walked on us, which was sad, because the truth is that Guy never got a solo deal and toured for 15 years behind Kenny Loggins. So here's another opportunity where I could have worked with David, and I think he would have been a tremendous asset for us. I felt sorry for Guy. He didn't get the deal that he was looking for. I remember in 1985, I recorded a direct-to-disc album, or the first side of it, titled Images, and we finished it up going direct to two-track, because that was the hardest thing I've ever attempted. Go 22 minutes with really material that pushed everybody. And I'll blog about that album itself, because it got me a Grammy nomination, and I was really appreciative of that. One of the first people to contact me through my friend Pasquale was David. After he heard the record Images, he congratulated me on the nomination and said, you know what, man, that kicked my ass. I got to practice. Also, in 1990, I kind of lost track of David for a few years there. I had a stint with Madonna. I worked on another solo record. But he called me up in 1990 to work on his River of Love album, and I got to arrange and play synthesizers and do overdubs, on that. I think the song was called This Must Be Love. And then we kind of lost track of each other. I didn't see very much of him at all, passing in studios and things like that. But we caught up recently in 2018. We were both working on different projects at the Village Recorders. Man, it was great to see him. We talked a bit. I said, well, let's have one of those meals that we used to have, every 6 months. And he said, man, I'm heading to New York. I said, really? What are you working on? And he said, well, I'm working on 3 different plays, and I want to get a Tony out of one of them because it's the only award I don't have yet. And that seemed to be the only one now that escaped him, and he wanted to go for it. So, I know from talking to other folks and seeing elements, of the way the business works, that there are some different opinions about David, but I saw his documentary, and I have to say, I thought it was extremely honest. And you just have to know David doesn't suffer fools gladly. And I mentioned this, a case in point was the segment I saw about the group Chicago. I know there was grumbling that he changed their sound. After Terry Kath, they needed to find a new sound, but the truth was that he went a new way with Cetera and added strings. And I know that the horn section in particular was angry that their role seemed to be diminished. And David put it best. He said the real truth was the album they released before, the one that David produced, sold a couple 100,000, and David's production brought them triple platinum and Grammys. So certainly Grammy nominations. I'm not sure how many Grammys they had. So I just want to state here, I'm deeply appreciative of his help, and I do respect his immense talent, and I got a feeling that the Tony Award that he's going for now, he's going to get one. I wouldn't bet against him, that's for sure.